Howdy, I'm Joshua Fields Milburn from The Minimalists. I've got some exciting news. I just started a solo podcast. It's called Minimalism Today. We want to start your week off with some bite-sized bits of simplicity. So here's what I do on Minimalism Today, which is an audio-only podcast. You're getting ready to hear the first episode. I call up people who are aspiring minimalists, and we just have a conversation about what they're struggling with. Some people are struggling with material clutter, or spiritual clutter, or emotional clutter, or attachment, or toxic relationships. Whatever they're struggling with, we work through those struggles together using time-tested minimalist principles. And so if you want to check out other episodes of Minimalism Today, you can do so. Just visit minimalism.today. Enjoy this first episode of Minimalism Today. This is Minimalism Today. My name is Joshua Fields Milburn. I have Yeman from Michigan on the line. Yeman, what are you struggling with today?
So I am trying to find a good balance between being comfortable and confident as a minimalist. I struggle with labels in general, and I feel like it constantly alienates people. So it's something that I really struggle with when I'm around people. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Tell me about the label thing. What kind of labels do you struggle with?
It's kind of actually, it's very fitting right now with what's going on politically. It's just everything is polarizing nowadays, be it through social media, be it in social gatherings. And the last thing I want is, especially as somebody who has come from overseas to the United States back in '08, and kind of, I had a culture shock. And then on top of that, it was, now I'm this Arab who's in Michigan. There's a majority of Arabs in here. And there's like an instant label that was placed on me that I wasn't necessarily familiar with. So I had to adjust to that to get through, let's say, high school and college and work. And then now with it, I feel like I adopted a lot of the principles that you guys push for, like through your platform. And I love it. And I feel at ease and comfort in it. However, I would say I'm not very confident about it when I'm around people, because it's always like, it's just, I don't think, a minimalist sounds like a guy who's extremely frugal, who's cheap, who has little, you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't really understand it, but I also feel like people don't take the time to understand why, I'm behind this choice, or why I made this choice. So, and I feel like, sometimes I'm the only one who understands that. It's annoying, because it's like, I'm sure, I'm trying to get rid of my student loans. I have the same typical story that led me to minimalism and led me to be living the way I do right now. And I'm very comfortable in it, like I said, myself. But however, when I'm placed in a circle of people, I feel alienated, and I struggle with that.
Sure. Yeah, the labels thing is fascinating, because labels are incredibly useful and incredibly stifling at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting in a chair right now. That's a label, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we can throw out other labels. In fact, what I found is you also threw a label out there, is minimalism seems frugal. Now, for some people, that label means one thing. Frugal might mean that they're good with money, right? For other people,
Mm-hmm.
frugal means, he's just a cheap bastard, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and so these labels, while useful to an extent, they begin to take on different meanings based on different interpretations that different people have. Now, the thing to notice here about the labels is there actually is no good or bad. And so, is frugality good or bad? No, it's not. In fact, we would need to take that label and unpack, well, what does that mean? I don't think minimalism is frugality necessarily. I think Kanye West is a minimalist. He has a $60 million mansion,
Mm-hmm.
and yet he is a minimalist. I grew up really, really poor on food stamps and government assistance, and we didn't have much money. We were very frugal with very little money, but we weren't minimalists, because we purchase things we didn't need with money we didn't have. And so, and by the way, we weren't very intentional with our resources. Minimalism involves being intentional with the resources we have. Now, when you wrote in, you mentioned limitations,
Hmm.
and you said specifically like that frugality translates into limitations, your circle of friends, etc. Um, and that is also a label in a way, and it's a judgment. It sounds to me, limitations meaning, well, this is a bad thing. When I hear the word limitations, I give it my own connotation. I hear a good thing.
Hmm.
Limitation means that I've set up a boundary, and boundaries can even be a label that is difficult to deal with, because boundary, it sounds like, oh, I'm turning people away. I shouldn't set up boundaries in my life with loved ones, but of course we all have boundaries. If you live in a home, you have walls; those are just boundaries. Your front door is a boundary,
Hmm.
and I found that our boundaries are actually courteous in many ways, because they keep out, a door is a good example of that. They keep out the people you want to keep out, and they let in the people that you want to let in. Now, if your friend's opinion about minimalism changed, how would that make you feel?
I would feel more welcomed in the circle. I
Mm,
because here's the thing, and you're right. There is a whole lot of judgment that went on, even in the way that I described it. Even though what I'm describing is kind of what I perceived from the surrounding.
yeah.
And I mentioned in what I wrote on Patreon, it's not the appearance that I care about, but I also kind of do, because I feel like, and it's not necessarily somebody stopped me and told me, hey, this is stupid. What you're doing is stupid. You're an engineer, you're making X amount of, figures a year. There is
Hmm.
no reason why I should be living this way. Nobody's ever done that. However, I've had people come over like my apartment because, again, even in the furniture and my arrangement of what I have here, it's minimalist. There is very little here, and I like it, and I did it purposefully, mostly because I have a whole lot that goes on through my head. When I walk into my place, I kind of dump it in this empty space, so it may appear empty. And I've had people
Mm.
when they, came over, they were like, "Oh, did you just move in?" Because the apartment is
Hmm.
kind of bare. and
Right.
and I was
And
like,
by
"No,
the way,
I've been here for 2 years." But
right, and you interpret that as a judgment, and
yes,
and I know that you're working to sort of drop that judgment, but to me, I think
correct.
the way to drop that judgment, instead of just dropping it, is maybe reframing it. Because if someone says that to me, "Did you just move in?" I take it as a compliment. Wow, I don't have much stuff that's getting in the way of living my life.
Mm,
Because real freedom involves removing the need to impress others. And as long as I have the need to impress upon you some image of me, I'm trapped by that image, by that identity that I create for myself. But real happiness releases you from the self. It is suffering and pain and misery and depression that tie us to the self, right?
profound.
And
Yeah.
I'm not telling you to suppress your desires, but
Hmm.
but and by the way, your desire right now is to impress other people, right? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but it is not necessary to feel fulfilled. And so I don't want you to suppress your desires. I also don't want you to seek to fill that desire either. I want you to understand that desire to impress other people. And yeah, if you smash your labels, you can be free, other
Hmm.
than the labels that we need through everyday language, right? But that those labels, like sitting in a chair, that is simply a description to me. I don't give it meaning. When we give meaning to the labels, the
Mm.
frugality or whatever, then we start to feel these negative feelings. But you have to understand the negative feelings are always in you. They're not in reality. They never are in reality. And so what we're trying to do quite often is we're trying to change the situation. We're trying to find a cause for our happiness. But
Hmm.
true happiness is uncaused. It cannot be acquired, it cannot be affirmed by the people around us. Happiness is pre-existing, right? I can't make
Yeah.
you happy. You can't make me happy. You are not my happiness. I'm not your happiness. That's already
Hmm.
inside you. And so the
Hmm.
friends that are around you, yeah, if their opinion changed about minimalism, all that would actually do is affirm you. But you don't need the affirmation. I don't need your affirmation in order to be able to do what I do. I don't need my wife's affirmation. I don't need my best friend's affirmation. The problem
So,
is that we get so attached to that affirmation and feel as though I need it in order to move forward.
okay. Well, I mean, what you said is very insightful and enlightening. I just want to ask I have a couple questions here. So the first one is what and what I said made you say that I'm seeking the affirmation or I'm seeking kind of that validation? Is it
Mm.
how, I guess, how did that message come across to you? Because I mean, truthfully, I that's the thing. I feel like I'm being driven, and again, like you said, everything you said, that the fact in terms of it being internal to me,
Hmm.
you're absolutely correct. You nailed it. It's probably the way I'm perceiving it, and I'm analyzing it in my head. And truthfully, that applies to a lot of other facets in my life, not just this one. Um, but I guess I'm just curious in us having this conversation right now and everything that I said to you and how I'm feeling is, how did it come across that I'm seeking the validation? Because
You
I'm
said
not really looking to impress at all. Like I feel
no,
like
but
I'm being driven to that point.
yeah, yeah, but and so either way, you are looking, you're seeking to impress, and the seeking is actually the problem. I'll tell you exactly what you said. You said um, that minimalism or simple living or whatever we want to call it, yeah, the
Hmm.
lifestyle that you're living, we can just remove the label altogether and say the lifestyle that you're living
Hmm.
is not viewed in the best light.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
by whom? By you? By you it is. It's actually, isn't that what actually matters? It is viewed in the best light by you. And so
Correct.
what you're
Yeah.
really saying is it's not viewed in the best light by other people. Well, that means you're seeking their approval. Yeah, but imagine, if you
Mm.
have 500 Facebook friends, imagine trying to appease half of them. You're going to spin your
Yeah.
wheels all day trying to get them on the same page as you. And by the way, it's not going to work, because even if you do get their affirmation today, there's going to be something about which you disagree. You're going to have different opinions or different tastes, different preferences, different desires, different values. And in having
Hmm.
those different values, they're always going to, at some point, look at you not in the best light. That's going to happen. I can guarantee it. And if your happiness is tethered to that, you're always going to feel this sense of discontent.
You nailed it. The other question I had is, given this conversation that we're having, have you had any of those feelings? I'm curious about your early days with minimalism.
Mm.
I've been on this wave with you and Ryan and the whole movement, I guess, if you will, for about a couple of years now. So I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm necessarily too seasoned, but I wouldn't say I'm a beginner either.
Yeah. I think for the longest time, I did care about what other people thought about me, especially early on. And I spent most of my 20s
Mm.
really trying to impress other people that I didn't even like that much, but I thought that I would like them if they liked me, in some weird Kafka-esque thing that was
Mm.
going on in my head. And so what did I do? I went into debt to buy luxury cars and a big house and fancy furniture and get the trinkets of success. In our culture, it's about the accumulation of things to show success, but I don't actually believe in success anymore. I don't think success exists. I think success is always about chasing, and I think chasing is failure. So by definition, if I'm always chasing something, then I am failing, because chasing is is acting on my desires. It's not being, it's acting. And I think that
Mm.
acting, that constant craving, is where we feel the discontent. Now, I'm not saying desire is wrong. I'm saying the attachment to our desires make us miserable. And so, as long as we're attached to those desires, that external affirmation, whether it's relationships or stuff or whatever else is out there that we think is going to make us a more complete person, then we're always going to feel that pang of discontent. We're going to try to fill the void. We're going to show up empty, looking to fill the void with people or things or achievements. But if you show up empty, you're always going to leave empty. It's only if you show up full to a relationship, to a career, to a store, whatever it is, if you show up full, then you can appreciate whatever you're showing up to. But if you need that thing you're showing up to, if you need that relationship, then yeah, you're always going to be clinging, and clinging is suffering.
No, that answers it. I got some things to think about.
I think it's a great place to end it, brother.